Roleplaying here at Gen Con, and today we're at the Paizo booth with the Chief Creative Officer and Publisher, Erik.
That's right.
So, of course, you have a lot of things you're known for, but in particular, Pathfinder, which has gone on for quite some time, but you finally decided it's time for a new edition.
Yeah, we launched Pathfinder back in 2009 right here at Gen Con, and it's been 10 years. And we've done a lot of work with the system, and have a lot of ideas about how to make it better. We did a big multi-month playtest, public playtest, starting last year at Gen Con. Right. Got feedback from over 100,000 gamers, and have been spending much of the time between now and then perfecting the system and getting it, I guess I should never say perfecting, right, but making it even better, you know, and taking their feedback and making it the best version of Pathfinder that we can make.
So what is actually the major difference, you'd say, between the old version and the new? Like, what was the big things you wanted to target to change?
Well, one thing we didn't want to change, just for starters, was the sort of deep customization that Pathfinder players have with their characters. So part of the core identity of Pathfinder is you have an idea for a hero in your head, the rules give you a path to make that character. So that was an interesting goal to hold on to, while we also wanted to make the game easier to learn and faster to play. And so at first you might think, well, those might be mutually exclusive goals, but they're totally not. So we've revised the action economy, so now instead of 7 or 8 different types of actions, your free action, your move action, your attack action, your non-action, your immediate action, your swift action, now everything's just an action, and every character gets to go 3 times per round. Right. So you want to move twice and attack, you can do that. You want to attack 3 times, you can do that. So the game is about sort of giving a tactical expression of what you want to do, and then your character is about giving you the abilities to pull the stuff off.
Right. And how has veterans of the series been responding to this? Because I know always when a new edition comes out, people are like, well, I don't want to lose my favorite rule book. Or
Sure. I mean, it's fair enough, right? I mean, the first edition was in print for 10 years, so there's a lot of folks who have a whole bookshelf of it, and many of them have not gotten through every single character option or adventure, which is kind of how it goes. Some people are going to want to work through their entire collection before they're ready to try out a new game system, and that's fine. And hopefully by the time they're ready, then we'll have even more books out, and it'll feel a little bit more like the same amount of content. But what I'm finding, and I've been playing a version of the D20 game since 3rd grade, way back in 1980 something or other, and so I find that the game actually, even though it is streamlined and easier to play, I feel like it even has more depth. So a good example of that is every character is built by what we call the ABCs: your ancestry, your background, and your class. And those 3 choices are going to inform many, many choices that you make throughout your character's career. So let's just stick with ancestry for a second. So you're going to play a dwarf, and I'm going to play a dwarf. In a lot of RPGs, we've got the same stats. Okay. But in Pathfinder 2, you pick a heritage, which is a secondary thing. So maybe you're a rock dwarf, and I'm a mountain dwarf. And those have slightly different abilities associated with them. And then several times throughout your character's career, you have an opportunity to take what's called an ancestry feat, which gives you even more connection to your ancestry. Okay, so the heritage, there's just more to it. So you can literally have a table of 5 halfling characters who are all legitimately different characters before you've even decided what class they are.
Yeah, that sounds really good, and especially I know I enjoy especially coming up with a weird backstory and stuff, and I think that sounds fun. And I will admit, I'm one of the new people. So I actually picked up the core Pathfinder, and I'm like, I'm going to start looking at this right before you announced 2nd edition. I was like,
oh, yes.
It was just
yes.
Not the first time that's happened with someone that.
I'm sorry to hear that.
What would you say to the new players like me?
Well, with new players like you, it's a great time to get on board, because the rules have never been less intimidating, both in terms of within the book itself. Right. Like, we tried to simplify things, give more explanation, have a lot, bring graphic design into play as a way to help people navigate their way through the book. So it's more accessible in that regard, but it is also more accessible now because, frankly, there's one rule book instead of 35 or 40. Right. So, you bought the Pathfinder 1 rule book last year or something. You say, oh, this is a great game. What else can I buy? Well, certainly you have a lot of options, but for some folks that's going to be intimidating, right? And so now you've got 12 classes, you've got 6 ancestries. We're going to be adding more soon, but now is a great time to jump on board.
Now, I know there's the core rule book. Yep. Is there anything else?
Absolutely. There's a core rule book. That's 640 pages of rules, 12 classes, 6 ancestries, bunch of spells, spells, all the rules you need for players and GMs.
Okay.
Then we've got the 340-page Pathfinder Bestiary, and that's the big monster book. So that's got more than 400 monsters, and beautifully color illustrated all the way through. Summoning fodder for summoners of every alignment. So no longer will you need to summon a celestial pony. You can actually summon an angel or something cool. So fully updated. The new action economy that I told you about gives us opportunities to give monsters much more flavorful and interesting powers because you have another commodity. So you come up with an idea for a monster and you say, I'd like to have this power. And you say, well, maybe that's a little powerful. Well, okay, how about if it takes 2 actions to do this power? How about if it takes 3 actions to do this power? So you can really map flavorful abilities to the monsters. And also we've completely re-engineered the stat block to make it easier to play. So the top line information is all perception, stuff like before the fight begins. Then you've got your defensive values. Then you got your attacks. And so everything's organized just kind of the way you need to reference it in play, which plays into us trying to make the game faster. So we got core rulebook, we got bestiary, we've got a bunch of accessories like GM screen, we've got a combat pad, which is a magnetic initiative tracking board, we've got condition card decks, which 110 card deck that summarizes all the different conditions, like I'm stunned, I'm deafened. Well, what does that mean? Well, you could flip to page 629, or you could just hand your player the card and say, you're dealing with this for 2 rounds, give it back to me when you're done.
Right.
We also have adventures. We've got a standalone adventure called The Fall of Plaguestone. That's a 64-page adventure that tells the origin story of how your adventuring group got together. There's a murder mystery. There's a little dungeon crawl in there as well. First level adventure. And then we've got the Age of Ashes Adventure Path, which is the first installment of a 6-volume adventure that we put out monthly. So over the course of 6 months, we'll take you from 1st to 20th level. And the first 3 or so levels of that's in an adventure called Hell Knight Hill that releases here at Gen Con. And worldwide, online, and hobby retailers and on online retailers.
Is that completely new, or is that a remake of one of the...
No, everything, it's all new. Yeah, it's all that content is new. And we've got, let's see, what else am I forgetting? We've got deluxe copies with a leatherette cover of both the bestiary and the core rulebook. Our partners at WizKids have released a sneak peek at their first set of Pathfinder 2nd edition miniatures, pre-painted plastic miniatures. So there's 8 figures, limited edition, exclusive colors. And then those figures will later appear in different colors with about 30 more figures in, I think, October.
But you do plenty of other things, and I'm curious, after releasing the 2nd edition, what you've learned from changing the rules, streamlining, but also trying to keep, has that spread to development for other products that you have, like whether the card game or Starfinder, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I think to some degree, yes. I mean, when we started Starfinder a couple of years ago, which if you do your math, you realize that we were already a year into the preliminary design of Pathfinder 2nd edition. So although we wanted Starfinder to hew much more closely to the mechanics of Pathfinder 1st edition than we wanted 2nd edition too, and I'll get to that in a second why, but we actually started Starfinder with kind of the first year's draft of the 2nd edition rules. So there are some things that we kind of tried out in Starfinder that we then refine and put into 2nd edition that were originally based on unrefined 1st edition or 2nd edition ideas. Okay, so so what I said about 2nd edition being now I'm losing my train of thought. Gen Con. So anyway, with 2nd edition, we didn't want it to just start with 1st edition and go, well, how do we kind of brush this up? Right. Lots of players have done that already. If you want to just run a slightly improved version of 1st edition Pathfinder, you can find that online. There's other people who help you do that. You'll do it yourself. What we wanted to do was we wanted to make a game that was fundamentally the best version of Pathfinder we can do. And to some degree, although there's tons of parallels, it's very easy to convert adventures on the fly, particularly if it's just one bestiary page for another. We kept all the monsters at the same level that they were before, so all the relative power rankings are the same. But we wanted to make Pathfinder the best Pathfinder it could be. Right. When Pathfinder was born, there was not a credible Dungeons & Dragons in the world. There was a not-so-great version that a lot of people didn't like. And so we were able to make a version of Pathfinder that scratched some of those itches. Yeah. But if someone just wants a D&D brand itch right now, they've got a D&D version that they can do. So the idea is not to make second best D&D. The idea is to make first best Pathfinder. Exactly. And so we started from blank pieces of paper. There's a ton of stuff. Existing Pathfinder players, it'll be very familiar. But we didn't want to just say, okay, let's take all the chapters in exactly the same order. Let's organize all the stuff in exactly the same way. Because 10 years have passed. Pathfinder 1 was based on a rules engine that was already 10 years old when we inherited it. Right. So it was really important to get under the hood and really fix the math, fix disparity between fighters and wizards, and really give people enjoyable stuff to do at every level.
Now, as you said, you've been around for 10 years. That's a lot of content to be pushing out. If you could choose like one adventure or specific maybe monster to bring into the second edition next, what's it going to be?
That's a great question. I think, well, we've already are doing some of that. You know, we're bringing a lot of monsters into the bestiary. We did a crowdfunding for our very popular Kingmaker adventure path to do a second edition version of that, and then that funded successfully, so that'll be coming out at the end of 2020. But in terms of like what hasn't come out yet, I'm quite partial to, we did a book called Occult Adventures in first edition, and that speaks very much to my own interests. I'm a book collector, and I have a lot of old crazy occult books and stuff, and I really got into that book and helped out with the outline and stuff, and that book had some really innovative character classes that were a little bit off kilter from sort of your dwarf fighter and stuff, and so I'm looking forward to bringing some of that stuff into second edition, and it shouldn't be too long. Well, I'm definitely going to be excited to see that kind of stuff, because this is, you now have 10 years to work and know how to refine them, as you said. Well, that's what we hope. Yeah. The best Pathfinder. Yeah. Well, I hope you're excited to try out the second edition Pathfinder, but until then, this has been Roll for Crit.
For more Gen Con content, like this video, subscribe to Roll for Crit, and follow us on all our social media platforms.
But if you really need more, you can visit our Patreon, where we'll be having a exclusive little Gen Con mini podcast to listen to.
And there's our contest running right now for the Keyforge Age of Ascension set. You can try to win. Find the link in the description down below.